Okay. So we said that by Reuben we're supposed to see, and we're supposed to see how everything comes out of the nothingness. How yesh, everything that's a yesh, comes out of the ayin. And this takes time. It's something that's why it's also the longest part of davening. It's a place where the person thinks the most. In Sukkah de Zimra, in the davening, what you look at is you look at the plurality of the world. There's no shortage of observations in Sukkah de Zimra. It's all about nature. It's all about how many things there are in the world. And the thing that it's supposed to lead you to in the end is love. Why? Because love is always a yearning for something that you don't have or that you're not part of. So let's give an example of what it means that you begin to see something. When a person has a teacher, a Rebbe, that he learns from a lot. So what begins to happen is that he recognizes that his mindset and that his mind, his understanding, is all coming from his Rebbe. And over time, so at first he has his own thoughts, his own way of seeing things and so on. But slowly but surely, the way his Rebbe sees it from the point of view of Torah, it begins to seep into him. And it begins to replace what he thought before. And over time, he begins to feel that his mind really came from his Rebbe. It's not his mind. He feels how the yesh, the somethingness that he has in himself, came out of his Rebbe, who for him is in a sense an ayin. He's like a nothingness, because I can't see into my Rebbe's head. What I feel all the time, though, still, is that I came out of it. My mind came out of his mind. The same thing is with a father and a child. That a child, even though he has not seen his father develop, and he didn't see his father give birth to him, he didn't see the whole process. As far as he's concerned, this process is nothingness. It's like, I can't even imagine it. It's almost like I can't even, there's even a certain barrier in the mind of thinking about it, of exactly how it happened. But I know that it's that way, that if he would not have done certain things, I wouldn't be here. So in that sense, everything that I have came out of him. And so these two are examples that the Friediger Rebbe gives of why a person is batel, why he feels nullification towards his source. So when you say that the yesh came out of the ayin, that what we see here as yesh came out of nothingness, that if you understand this, the way you understand how you came out of your father, the way you understand your mind comes out of your Rebbe, using these two parables, then you begin to understand what it means to be batel to Hashem. And he says that takes time. It takes a lot of time, even though it sounds like a simple mashal, like to actually ingrain it into you, it takes time. So one of the mistakes that is usually made in this context is that people have a misunderstanding of the relationship between the spiritual and the physical. That they think that yesh mi'ayin is like the physical coming out of the spiritual. But that's not true. Because, for instance, if I take myself and I look at myself, so my physical is not a product of my spiritual. It didn't come out of it. And so my physical is not naturally inclined to nullify itself before the spiritual. So even if I have a feeling, I've said that the spiritual is more important, let's say, and I think I should invest more time in it, and so on and so forth, it'll never translate into I should be nullified, my physical being should be nullified before my spiritual being. They're equal, actually. They're mamash equal. They walk side by side. That's why we say, what's the pele, what's the wonder? That Hashem takes two materials or essences that are completely different, opposite, and He joins them together, but they're not one a product of the other. They didn't come one out of the other. And it's a mistake that's made so many times because there's this feeling somehow that the spiritual is higher than the physical. So somehow it must have given birth to it, or it must have produced it, but it didn't. In Moreh Nevuchim, in the second part of Moreh Nevuchim, chapter 25, he brings a medrash from Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, which is one of the earliest midrashim. And there he interprets, he says, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim et haaretz. The medrash says, when God created the heavens and the heavens are one material, and the earth is another material. And they're just separate. When Hashem created, He created immediately plurality. Okay? He created immediately this idea of there being two. And it's not the way that the Greeks imagined it. How did the Greeks imagine it? They imagined that there was first a primary mover, and then he created another one, that one created another one, and so on and so forth. It's just a chain.
They mated.
Who knows what they did? But it's not mated, because there's no coupling when there's one producing the other. It's a chain. So to understand the concept of two things connecting as a couple, for that you need the medrash. You need to see that the heavens and the earth are just two different materials. And I don't think, maybe we talked about this, but I don't think we even talked about this last year when we were learning. One of the big chidushim of the Arizal is to say that instead of two heavens and earth, when Hashem created the world, He created actually 10 right away. Mm-hmm. That the first thing He did was 10. Now we have this whole concept not just of mating and coupling between two, but rather we have this whole intricate, complex structure of inter-inclusion, which is much more complex than just coupling. Mm-hmm. And anyway, these are advancements in thought that the Rambam, who was trying to use Aristotle to prove Hashem's existence, or to prove how Hashem governs the world, and just say, everything that Aristotle proved about nature, that there is a prime mover and so on, he's suddenly faced with this anomaly that the Medrash says the whole thing is not a chain. It's rather that Hashem brought out two right away. And now these two, they begin to interconnect with one another, and they produce everything. We see that afterwards there's water coming down from heaven, and then growing things from earth, and so on, and all these instances of two things coupling. So that's an anomaly for the Rambam system. So in chapter 25, he has this really hard debate with the Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. He says, where did you get this? It doesn't make sense. Okay?
He had Eshmael. He had the concept of Eshmael.
Yeshmael doesn't solve this problem.
Why?
Because it could be the Yeshme'ayin. Hashem's the first mover, and He creates the Yeshme'ayin, the second one.
No,
but it doesn't mean that He has to create two.
Right.
So now this presents like a question.
Create one, why can't He create two?
Of course. The Rambam doesn't say it's not true. He just says this presents a question to my way of understanding the world, which is based on Aristotelian, or at least in this book, I'm basing it on Aristotelian understanding of nature. So the concept of the spiritual and the physical being somehow one higher than the other is one that the Medrash does away with. Mm-hmm. And it says, don't think of it that way. Don't think that spiritual is higher than the physical, or that the spiritual somehow begets the physical. Rather, they're created in parallel. And it's their combination that creates reality. Or later on with the Arizal, it's even 10 things are created in parallel, and their combinations, their different inter-inclusions, how they connect with one another, that is what creates reality. So why is this all very important? Because that's what Psukei de Zimra is about. When I look at Psukei de Zimra, I don't care how many different objects there are in the reality that I'm looking at. What I'm trying to feel is how they all directly come out of Hashem. That He makes everything exist on an equal footing. Okay? Why should I care if the ant that walks around on the ground came out of Hashem? Why should I care? Because it gives me, it demolishes or it does away, it annuls my feeling of preeminence over everything. Baal Shem Tov says that if you want to begin to serve Hashem, so you have to understand that you and the ant serve Hashem equally. You're its brother. Why? Because in the sense of coming out of the Ein Sof, out of the infinite, you both came out the same way. In the same way, who would say that the heavens and the earth are equal? For the Rambam, that's like, what are you talking about? The earth came out of the heavens. Because the earth is so much lower than the heavens. Say them. That's Aristotelian thought, or what we call hishtadshalut, evolution, that the simple precedes the complex. But when I want to understand the concept of yesh me'ayin, I can't do it that way. I have to understand that everything at every moment is coming out of the ayin equally. And so when I begin to understand that I and the ant are coming out at the same, using the same process, the same type of relationship, so I begin to understand, why is it that I feel so detached? Why is it that I have to place myself in some high, place in the world, in some high hierarchy, high place in the hierarchy, and so much comes out of me, and I don't feel myself coming out of the Ein Sof. I don't feel that. So what do I feel? I feel that the spirit gives the body life, and that I call yesh me'ayin, but it's not even close. That all that is animation of the physical. And it's one coupling with the other, the spiritual coupling with the physical. And as a result, there's a human being. It's very nice. But the whole thing in and of itself, the spiritual and the physical and everything that came out, they all came out from the same place, from the Ayin, from the nothingness. And that type of coming out is a completely, completely different concept than evolution, than things developing. Because it's instantaneous. It's the same thing as what I should feel when my mind begins to develop, and I've learned from my Rebbe for a long time, and I begin to have his mind. So I don't feel the evolution of my mind. What I feel is that the whole mind that I have now, it's batal, it's nullified to my Rebbe's mind, because I feel it's just a subset of his. It's just something that came out of him. Not what's it.
So it's a process of refinement. You meditate on your father bringing you into this world,
which you can't, which is hard.
Right. Which leads you to understand that your thoughts are really Rebbe's, which would ultimately lead you to understand that there's nothing but Hashem. They are different attacks on the same issue. Attacking from different places, from different parables, trying to get at the essence that's what Reuven means. That's what Pesukei Zimra is about. That this whole plurality is not the scientific picture of the simple begetting the complex, but rather it's all coming out at this moment from the nothingness, regardless of how complex it is. It doesn't really matter. Because even as complex as I am today when I'm in my late 40s, in the end, I'm batal to my father. Even though he's not even here in this world, but I'm still batal to him. I still have my father in my consciousness, because that's where I came from. And that's why there's a mitzvah to continue to honor him even after he's passed. In fact, it says, yoter mi b'chayav, even more than when he was alive, in certain things. Is this the thing that Korach was trying to circumvent? This whole concept of student and Rebbe?
Maybe. So that's Pesukei Zimra. What it's trying to do is so now, why does it beget love? Because love is a yearning. So what am I yearning? I'm saying, me, because of all of my complexity, I get caught up in it, and I can't see, I can't experience, I have no feeling of how I come out of the nothingness at every moment also. Because I'm aware of my building. I'm aware of how I was constructed, how my mind was constructed. I'm aware of how things developed in me.
I've been around for a long time. Besedo, you've been around for a long time. It's very nice. But if you remember how it all started, then you can begin to understand how the yesh came out of the ayin. That's why the first thing that it says that the Baal Shem Tov, the first thing you would ask somebody who knew who came was was gedankst du? What do you remember?
Oh, yeah, from your learning.
No. What do you remember?
Oh, from a previous life.
No. So what do you remember? And people would say, so you would say, from my learning. So, okay. Every person, he had a different answer. So Reb Nachman was so taken by this that that's what the first thing that he used to do, that he put it into 7 betlers, into the 7 beggars. He has a story that one of them, each one of the beggars gives this couple a gift for their wedding, and each one of them is a story. So he gives them a story about people who went to this special island, and there was a great eagle there. And the great eagle is the Baal Shem Tov, basically, in the story. So he asks every person, what do you remember? How far back do you remember? And the person remembers the most, so he has the strongest connection to Hashem. Because really what's going on? Because as the person remembers, if he can remember the nothingness, there's one person there, there's a small child who remembers the nothingness. So the one who says, I remember an egg, I remember this. Every person remembers further back. And then one person remembers the nothingness. And he says it's a process. It's not something that you get like that. You have to slowly work on it to strip down all the evolutionary thinking in your mind. Because evolutionary thinking says that, again, it's Aristotelian thinking. It's like the simple created the complex. So I'm very complex. So it can't be that I'm so close to the source. I'm very far away because the source was very simple. And then it became, so my father was already very complex, so I'm even more complex. So when you think like that, you can never connect yourself back to the nothingness. You can never connect yourself back to the source. So you want to strip that away. It's not that thinking is incorrect. The Rambam based a lot of Torah on it. So it's not incorrect, but it's not how you get to the sense of seeing, Reuven here, the something come out of the nothing. And to see it again in the heart's, the mind's eye and the heart, means that I've been able to strip away my rational thinking in a certain sense. And I've gone into what we call enclothement thinking. That inside everything, at this moment, is the nothingness that beget it all. There's no difference between me and the ant. It's all the same. It's all coming out at this very moment. And to see that, when, first of all, even realizing that I don't have that sense, but I keep confusing myself between my spirit and my matter, and I said this one causes this, and it's like some kind of strange cycle or whatever, and I don't feel everything, my spirit and my matter, coming out at the same time from the nothingness. So I don't yet have a concept of seeing Yekara de Malka, seeing the glory of the king, if you want. It means that I'm being created at this very moment. That's the main thing that you get from Psukkah de Zimra. And the plurality is to tell you there's no difference in the end. From the smallest type of life or inanimate, from the rocks, from the stones, from everything, until the most complex type of life, we're leveling the field, and everything came out from the same thing. Hashem doesn't have a problem with the plurality. Right? And there is there's a lot of Jews that still think like Aristotle. It's unbelievable. they even fight against Aristotle, but they don't know that they still think the same way. They think the same way. The simple comes before the complex. And therefore, the chain of being starts there at the top, and somehow you have to go a long, long way down until you reach where it started. And they don't have a concept. It's all level. And at this very moment, everything is coming out of the nothingness, and there's no difference between how complex it is or isn't.
Is it coming out complex or is it coming out simple?
It's coming out complex.
It's coming out complex.
Okay. There's no difference. Okay. כי עיקר הכוונה, והדרך זה נתקנו פסוקי דזמרה ויוצרו קודם קריאת שמע כדי שיבוא לקיום ואהבת בקריאת שמע. And then the whole thing of Kriyat Shema is in order to awaken this yearning to experience that. That's what I really want to experience. the experience that the person wants to achieve is what is supposed to come out of Kriyas Shema. And that's the love, the yearning for Hashem that comes out. So the Frierdiker Rebbe gives a beautiful mashal for this. And he says that, first of all, a person needs to know that this takes time. It's not something that will happen overnight. You have to work on it for years until you experience this. Some people are born with it. And right away they feel that they have no separate existence. And even if they have some kind of separate existence, it's constantly being taken out of the nothingness. It's like they're coming out of something. To experience, if a person would remember his birth, it could be that every person would experience this naturally in life. But we don't remember the first 2 years. And we don't remember even the awakening of the consciousness. We don't remember the awakening of self-consciousness. So because we don't remember it, there's no easy way to explain it. But if you are able to reconstruct it from various parables that we just gave, like a person towards his father or his mother, and a person towards his, and particularly towards the father. The reason we say the father and not the mother is because from out of the mother I came out. From the mother it begins as already something physical, and when you come out of the womb, you're already something physical. But here the idea is that you have to feel that you came out of a drop, out of nothing. And the smaller this nothing is, the more inconsequential it is, the greater the feeling, the greater it helps you understand, the closer it is to understanding what it means that everything at this moment is coming out of the nothingness. The closest thing, I guess, that you could see visually is like on Star Trek, there used to be like a warp drive. So when you come out of the warp drive, you suddenly see out of nowhere something comes into reality. Truth is, this is what they see every day in a particle accelerator. They see particles coming out of nothing and returning into nothing. But to experience that about my whole self, so they say particles, it's easy because particles are so simple, not so simple, but they're simple. The mathematics to describe a particle is more complex than mathematics to describe a human being. But as simple as they are, people there that don't have such a huge issue with it. But feeling it about myself, that becomes a problem. And that's the yearning. The yearning is that when will I experience this? That's what it means to love Hashem. So the Frierdiker Rebbe gives a beautiful mashal. He says it takes a long time to develop. So most people give up very quickly. They hear this mashal, they hear what I just said, and they say, okay, today I'll try, tomorrow I'll try, after 2 days they stop. So he says, but it's not true. Every person can get to this. It's just that you have to treat it like it's your business. He says when it comes to Parnasa, nobody feels that they're wasting time reading another article about their business and another thing about it. Everybody just takes as much time as it needs. And day after day after day, for years, they'll continue to develop their business and what they know and their profession. And with that, they don't have a problem. But with understanding what it means to be a human being, which is your main business, your main profession, what it means to be a Jew, what it means to experience this coming out of nothingness, that they give up quickly. Why? Because it doesn't come so easily. So you have to treat it like it's parnasa. So that's what we talked about when we said that Avraham Avinu brought money into the world, so that we would have a mashal for what it means to be diligent about something for years upon years upon years, trying to achieve it, trying to get to it. Otherwise, if there was no money, it would be just bartering. We would never have this concept of moving forward with the profession also. Okay. כי עיקר הכוונה בסיפור שבחו של מקום הוא כי לא די בידיעה לבדה. It's not enough just to know that everything came from Hashem. לפי שבחינת העלם. Because in the world, and here we're talking about Atzilus. In Atzilus, it's all hidden. So every person have, another way of saying this, and I'm sorry I'm using so many words to describe this one thing, but this is, in a certain sense, this is the ikar of Chassidus. To have a sense of what my divine soul is, and what it means that I don't identify with it, is to understand that my divine soul is exactly this experience. If I can experience the coming out of nothingness, that is the divine soul itself. We talked about this in different ways. The divine soul is always
a feeling of freshness. It's always a feeling of I just came on the scene. It's always a feeling of everything is new. The animal soul is the opposite. It's continuity. In that sense, the whole Aristotelian system that the Rambam uses, it's an animal soul experience. It's that things just progress, they evolve. So that's how the animal soul feels things. Because it doesn't have this coming out of nothingness ingrained into it, even though it is coming out of nothingness. But its feeling of self is so strong that it conceals it from itself. So it can't even remember that it came out of nothingness. But the divine soul is by definition this feeling. It does many things. This feeling is the divine soul is incredibly powerful. But to begin to identify with it, I have to at least identify with this experience that something is coming out of nothing, that I'm the something coming out of nothing. So he says it's not enough to know this. Everybody knows this, because it says so in the Torah, that it came out of nothingness. Yesh me'ayin. Everybody knows that somewhere in the Torah it says that everything came out of nothingness. But, what do you have to be? But it's a helem, the experience itself is hidden, it's concealed. And that's the whole world of Atzilut is that way. It's helem v'gilui. It's things that are concealed that need to be revealed. There's nothing new there. It's just that it's concealed and you have to reveal it. So you have the divine soul and it's already working inside, but you have no revelation of it. You have no experience of it. So to begin to experience it means to take it from helem into gilui, from being concealed to being revealed. כי עיקר הכוונה בסיפור שבחו של המקום, הוא כי לא די בידיעה לבדה, לפי שהוא בחינת ההלם. ואפילו גנב האפום מחתרתא, even when a person is a thief, and he goes to steal, so what does he know? He knows, but he only knows that without Hashem's help, he's not going to be successful. But he's a thief. So he calls out to Hashem and he says, Hashem, help me. Every single criminal in the world, every single person who's this, calls out to Hashem. He's religious because it's a very hard situation. You don't know how you're going to come out of it. You know you need help. You know everything comes from Hashem. So you call out to Hashem, you say, what can I do? This is where I am, help me. But that means he just knows. If he would experience, he would stop at that moment the negative thing that he's doing because it wouldn't make any sense. But it means that you just know about this in some general knowledge, but you're not conscious of it. You don't experience the fact that everything is dependent on Hashem. Dependent in the sense of its very existence. ולא יבוא לקיום ואהבת כי אם כשיצא מאלם אל הגילוי מבחינת ידיעה לבחינת ראייה. So to really yearn for Hashem only happens when you begin to reveal this to yourself, that this is how it is, that something comes out of nothing, and something includes the spiritual and the physical and everything in between. שהוא בחינת גילוי להסתכלן. That's what it means to reveal in the sense of to see. And why do we use the verb to see? We don't say to hear. So the explanation is because when you see something, nobody can move you from it. When you hear something, no, I heard one thing, but the meaning was something else. But when you see, it's permanent.
This is the whole thing of
it's
the
ages.
dying, the soul.
Good, exactly. This is also why a dying can't become an aid. Because the moment you've seen something, the Ed can't become a Dayan. The moment you're a witness to something, you can't judge it. Because to judge is according to understanding. It's Bina. But to be a witness is Chokhmah, is to see it. והיינו על ידי שירבה לספר בשבחיו יתברך ולהעמיק דעתו איך שמלכותך מלכות כל עולמים. What it means here is that again, this מלכותך, your kingdom, means the first light that comes out of Hashem, the first revelation that comes out of Hashem, creates everything. Malchut kol olamim. It encompasses all the world. There's nothing that's not created in this way. Malchutcha, again, the whole issue about the world of Atzilus, we began to talk about this last week, is that Atzilus is only a light. It's not a revelation of the essence. It's not the thing in and of itself. It's not etzem vit pashtut. It's not the thing in of itself and its extension. It's rather just Ha'elim v'gilui of the light that reveals the Etzem. But it's just the light. And this light is called Malchutcha. It's called the Malch, your kingdom. That's how it's called in...
So the world isn't actually developed.
Sorry?
The world isn't actually constructed.
In emanation, no. There's no...
Physical world exists. It exists anyway. But the question here in Atzilus is only about the light that reveals Hashem. It's not about the world. Okay? V'amitut Shem Yachid. So why do we say? Sorry, you skipped.
Just go back to just mental image. So when we're talking about the worlds, they're not parallel. They don't live in the same structure below one another. They're of a different form, or they're in the same structure.
So this part of imagining or constructing in the mind what the Arizal meant, what the Zohar means, is the topic of many, many Maimarim. Basically, it's like asking in the consciousness, when I have this concept of everything coming out of nothingness, where is that located? Where is that situated relative to my ability now to read a sentence? Where does that live? So it's like it's a substrate of everything. So Atzilus, the Maggid tried to illustrate this by saying Atzilus is Eichda. What he meant to say is Atzilus is everywhere. It's a substrate of everything in the world. So you can't really talk about Atzilus in the sense it's higher. It's this more basic state of consciousness that really permeates all our consciousness, everything that. But the thing is that it can be not revealed at all, meaning that I can have no consciousness of Atzilus at all, even though it's everywhere when I become conscious of it. But it's almost like it's nowhere. So how did they describe this? So they said that between Atzilus and Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah, there's some kind of masach. There's some kind of separation, some kind of curtain. And sort of like the Wizard of Oz, that behind the curtain is sitting this guy, and he's making everything happen. But you could be completely oblivious of it and not know, and you think that this is the world. So where is Atzilus? So that picture of worlds being one above the other and so on is like a first approximation that the person is supposed to take from it, that this is more basic. For some people it would be easier to put the Atzilus like as a ground, and above that build everything. Maybe that's, but that resembles too much the evolutionary concept, that the ground is on the bottom, and we don't want to say that. We want to say that Adrabah, the Atzilus is the most complex, because it has a sense of the nothingness becoming the everything. So there's nothing lacking there. So it's not like a ground. It's not like it's a simple. So we have all these different problems of how to represent this, considerations. On one hand, you want to say it like this, and in the end, it's pictured like a Yud Kif Vav Kif, like it's from top to bottom. But you can build it in other ways also. It's not so in different Maimarim, it's built in different ways.
The question is, what happens in this world? I don't want to use the word replicated, and I don't want to use the word transferred, but does it exist in the other worlds?
Of course.
In the same format?
There's only one world in the end.
Okay, but in the same format, or in a different format? Because you just said that this world is only light.
The world of Atzilus.
Right.
The world of Atzilus is only light.
The-
It's only about the light.
Oh, it's only about the light.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
But it's a substrate for all the worlds.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I just said something that because of a certain story about the Frierdiker Rebbe probably would be misunderstood. So there's only one world. What I mean to say is, even when we talk about many spiritual worlds, Tzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah, in the end we're only talking about one reality. So there's only one reality here. Apart from that, there's also a different reality when Hashem will reveal Himself, when He takes the curtain aside. And then suddenly, so one way of saying this is that even in this world, even in this reality, if a person has a strong consciousness of Atzilus, then he's already living in the world to come. He's already living, as it were, in a different reality. In this reality, evolutionary thinking forces you to say that when something is dead, it's dead. And In a higher place, what?
Toit is toit.
Yeah, Toit is Toit. In a higher place, there's no difference really between something being this way or that way. It's in reality, and in the future you'll see that it'll be animate again. Right now, what you're seeing is you're seeing a certain aspect of it. So that's like having two realities instead of saying two worlds. But in the end, this is all, Tzilus is everywhere. It's just a question of whether I can sense how this is coming out of the nothingness or not. If I can't sense this coming out of the nothingness, I certainly can. It's easier to sense it about myself, really, because I'm privileged to something about myself that I'm not privileged to about any object around me, which is I have a clear sense of myself. I can't lose sense of myself. Here I can lose sense of it. So I can constantly feel that everything that's here, that's what it means to nullify. It's to say this is all coming, it's all predicated on how it comes out of the nothingness. That's the whole purpose of Sukkah de Zimra and Yotzer O and the first pasuk of Kriya Shema. So that's Reuven again. So we haven't progressed further. These are very important mishalim. Okay, so we'll stop here.